We have heard God is with you, living change in the Church, honestly and confidently. Pastoral letter for Lent 2024 by Bishop Georg of the Diocese of Limburg. Dear brothers and sisters in faith, in the first few months of the year, there's a lot of tension in many accounting departments as companies weigh up profits and losses to see whether the past year was successful. Many individuals also take stock in the hope that as they review successes and setbacks, the scales will tip in a positive direction. However, if we close the year in the larger context of this world, things look bleak. Measures of whether we could counteract what makes people flee their homes to seek asylum, of the consequences of the climate crisis, of whether perpetrators are persuaded at last that terror and war change nothing for the better, all negative. We in the Church have also lost a lot. Far too many have turned their backs on us again for a range of reasons. Behind the shockingly high number of departures are individuals who've taken stock and made a decision. And I'm sorry about each one of them.
What we've long sensed intuitively and statistically was confirmed a few months ago by a new church membership survey of more than 5,000 people in Germany, including religious and non-religious persons, church-going, and the unchurched, with data broken out for the Catholic Church for the first time. The figures confirm a picture of continuing and rapid decline for both of Germany's major faiths, whose social significance is dwindling. Only 48% of Germany's population now belongs to either of the two major churches, and even fewer believe that there is a God who has made himself known in Jesus Christ. Criticism of the Church as an institution is confirmed. And the thesis that people are just taking their religiosity away from churches and into the private sphere is refuted. Lived faith outside of the churches is non-existent. Religious convictions have virtually no significance for the way people lead their lives. Our country is becoming more secular, and the majority of the population is hardly approachable in religious terms. Findings on the remaining faithful also paint a picture of a dramatic crisis. Only 4% of Catholics and 6% of Protestants in Germany say they're closely attached to their church. Trust, especially in the Catholic Church, has fallen enormously. And almost half of the Catholics are thinking about leaving the church, with only a third ruling it out. It would be fatal to deny or trivialize such developments. Let's be honest, we've had long ceased being able to pass on our faith and attachment to the Church from generation to generation.
Even so, I've personally long held a conviction based on many encounters. Reality is actually smiling on us. After all, we believe that God showed himself in the space and time of our world when Jesus became man. That's why, for me, the world today remains a place to discover traces of the divine. Even if the first glances is sobering and disillusioning, it's necessary for discovering something that, on a second look, breaks previous patterns and helps to initiate something new.
A second look at the church membership study in Germany reveals a number of surprises. Although so many of them are quitting, Catholics find it emotionally difficult to do so. Rather than indifference, leaving the church is often associated with anger, rage, and suffering. This could be a starting point for a conversation with those people. People remaining in the church expect it to work against poverty and for justice, in line with the vast majority of the unchurched survey subjects. The commitment to refugees, climate protection, and combating poverty are obviously still key to the Church's credibility.
While I often hear critical voices saying that a supposedly silent majority is skeptical about reform, the survey proves the opposite. An overwhelming 96% of Catholics say my church must change fundamentally if it wants to have a future. The most important issues include a positive approach to homosexuality, more genuine participation by the laity, the free choice of marriage or celibacy for priests, and greater ecumenical cooperation. This means, though, that attempts to maintain certain norms despite low acceptance among the faithful will probably lead to even more defensiveness, conflict, and departures. Reform certainly won't solve all the Catholic Church's problems, but strife will be worsened if changes fail to take place. Half of all Catholic Church members are involved in volunteer work, significantly more than the average population. We need to spread the word on why community and others' well-being are so important to us.
The approval rate for confirmation and First Holy Communion remains high. A third of our population has attended a church daycare center. Our child and youth programs continue to be used. Conversely, it's also clear that those who don't come into contact with the church in their youth are unlikely to do so later on. Finally, the churches still have a wide reach. Church locations, parishes, Caritas facilities, educational work, and counseling services have an impact on society. A third of all respondents stated that they've had contact with church staff and agencies.
We are not at the end as an institution, but a very specific social form of church that developed over the past 150 years is coming to a conclusion. The springs of faith are still bubbling up today because God stands by his promises. This is why I find the words of the prophet Zechariah encouraging. Thus says the Lord of hosts, "It shall yet come to pass, men of the nations, of every language, shall take a man of Judah by his garment, and shall hold him fast, saying, We will go with you, for we have heard, God is with you." The basic experience of people of faith is that God walks by our side as the Rabbi from Nazareth, Jesus Christ, the Son of God. This motivates people to proceed outward themselves because, as the theologian Fulbert Stefensky puts it, it is as if people who come into contact with the mystery cannot stand it in their old place. They go and seek their happiness and salvation elsewhere. Restlessness in the traditional place, dissatisfaction with the old places, leaving the old houses to seek a new one. It is a basic movement of faith. What do our settled churches do with this?
I am convinced that we needn't ask, what will become of us? We should live selflessly in faith, personally and communally, and offer faith in all of its dimensions as much as we can. Do it selflessly and talk about why we do it, why it's important to us, and what drives us at our core. Perhaps we've taken it too much for granted in recent decades that people know what the church is and what faith is all about. Instead, we should start meeting people in all our church activities and personal lives in such a way that they begin to ask questions. I am deliberately holding back on offering solutions because they won't succeed when imposed from the top down. It's more effective if you try it yourselves, where you live your faith, in the churches and the wider parishes, in institutional centers and services. It would be a good starting point for the newly elected parish councils to come to a sober and honest agreement about their realities and to set priorities based on the survey data.
For some time, I've noticed an advertising poster from the AKSB Working Group of Catholic Social Education Centers that says, "Are you the change that our society needs?" I think to myself, yes, I want to live the change that our church needs. And I'd like to do it together with many others. Your Bishop, Dr. Georg Bätzing, the Diocese of Limburg, the first Sunday of Lent 2024.